Hey friends, Alan Lee here with the Handyman Journey YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in to another video. Today you are watching story time. I'm going to tell you guys a fantastic story. Well, fantastic for you guys. It was pretty hectic for me, of a time when I could have burnt the house down. Kind of crazy. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Basically, we had a client who had one of those box lights in his ceiling, or sitting down from his ceiling, and he wanted to pull that down and replace it with 3 pendant lights. So I'm like, okay, no problem. The power was over here on the left. I had to run it. This was a second story house, so there was those I-beams between the first and second story. So I had to take power and run it through the I-beam over to where my next pendant would be. I cut the hole right where the pendant would be. This is kind of the center of the island now. I installed a metal box there, and I screwed it into the side of the I-beam. And then during the process of actually installing this pendant, I got shocked. I touched the box and I got shocked, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, this is kind of crazy, There was no, and then it also wasn't working. There was no breakers tripped or anything like that, but I kept getting shocked. I'm like, what is going on? So at the end of the day, I decided to pull that box out and see what was going on. Well, when I pulled that box out, one of my 1 5/8" screws had a little bit of burn mark on the end of it. Well, I'm like, well, that's crazy, So I'm like, okay, there must be a wire on the other side of that I-beam joist that, I obviously punctured. So unfortunately, this is the first story of a second story house, so there's no attic access up there. So my only option was to cut open the ceiling. So I cut open the ceiling right there, and sure enough, I found that I punctured right into a wire. I punctured right into a wire, and I'm like, whoa, what happened, And you could see that the wire up there was actually burnt. So I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be bad. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to trace it back and fix the stuff that's burnt. What I ended up doing, I had to cut a hole, I think maybe like 20 feet down, and I checked the wire out and it was still burnt. So I went maybe another 5 feet and it wasn't burnt. So I'm like, okay, great. So I installed a junction box there, installed a junction box here, and basically ran a new wire in between. But man, that job turned into a nightmare because it was just one quick little job where it would have been 3 pendants and we're out of there. But it turned into a whole lot of drywall repair that obviously I did not get paid for. It was my fault. I needed to fix it. But for a long time there, I was like freaking out because I'm like, holy crap, like, I could have burnt this house down. Like, what if this wire is burnt all the way to where it goes in the wall? Or man, I'm not an electrician. Like, I don't want to go into, breaker boxes and rerun wires in between a first and second story. Like, it was absolutely insane. But again, it was a learning experience, whereas, like, for one, use the appropriate size screws, right? That's rule number 1. Do not use screws that are too long for what you need them to be. This was an 1 5/8" screw, and the I-beam joist where I was screwing it into is only like 3/4 inch plywood or whatever you have at OSB, right? So it did not need to be 1 5/8" long. So use the appropriate size screws. Also know what is behind where you are screwing, and make sure you do your due diligence on that. And most pendant lights do not need a box that's actually screwed in. They can use a box that's actually hung from the drywall, depending on the weight of the pendant. If the pendant is too heavy, you definitely need to get something that screws into a joist or some sort of structure like that. But that was definitely a huge learning experience. I learned a lot, kind of freaked out a little bit, probably lost some age off my life, but all in all, it turned out well. But that's been a little bit of story. I would love to hear some stories from you guys. Drop me a comment in the comment section below with a crazy story of a handyman job that you have done. Also, check us out at handymanjourney.com. We have a free ebook that we would love to give you. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, and have a great day.